Welcome to Cheating Web Stories. We've got a thrilling story for you today, and we hope you love it, so sit tight and let's get into the story. Hello, I'm Albert, 54, and I've been married to my wife Elizabeth, though I call her Lizzy, for 28 years. When I first met Lizzy, I was just 24 and teaching art at the local high school. No, we're not American. We actually live on the Yorkshire coast in North England. I remember the first time I saw her. She had a short skirt on, and I specifically remember thinking, geez, I had no idea I was into legs like that. She had just stunningly beautiful legs, and although she was only a B-cup, she had this way of arching her back that made her appear super busty. She was bubbly and giggly too, and really the most beautiful thing I had ever laid eyes on. The weird thing, though, was that she never ever thought she was beautiful at all. I wanted to spend my whole life making her feel beautiful, but she just couldn't see what I saw. She would look in the mirror and see this round, chubby face and a nose that was probably a bit bigger than it should have been. But I saw her stunning blue eyes that turned green when she got teary at those cheesy movies, her gorgeous smile, and those cute Cupid's bow lips. She was perfect to me. I'm pretty tall, like 6 feet 4 inches, and I completely dwarf Lizzy, who's 5 feet 4 inches. I've got dark hair, now graying a little, and green eyes. People say I'm still looking good, or at least that's what I hear. Lizzy's not one to give too many compliments. I think she figures I should just know I'm still cute. When we first met, she nicknamed me Clarky because I reminded her of Clark Kent with my dark hair and glasses. It took me a bit to get her to go out with me. I keep telling her that I've been into her way longer than she's been into me. But when we finally got together, it was total love. We got engaged after just 3 months. Crazy, right? We tied the knot the next year, but I never felt those pre-wedding nerves. I just totally adored her. That's all there is to it. She wasn't perfect, but hey, neither was I. She had a pretty bad temper and could be a bit selfish, but she was just right for me. Fast forward 28 years. We were having a party for our son Arthur's 21st birthday. We had so much hardship getting him here. It took us ages, and we never had more children. That still hurts a bit, you know. We couldn't really complain. Some people aren't that fortunate, but our Arthur was just a godsend. He was the sort of son any man would be proud of. He was the kind of child one could take anywhere. Now that he's grown up, he's able to converse with anyone, make people feel at ease, and possesses this humorous, engaging aura. From babies to elderly people, our Arthur just completely wins everyone over. Arthur and I were super tight, and we shared the same funny bone. He'd always say what I was going to say before I even got the chance to. We spent so much time together, and he'd often say things about how I was his buddy and his dad at the same time. I know you're supposed to be your kid's parent and not just their pal, but I surely hope I could be both. Why wouldn't I want a kid as smart as him to be my buddy? So, while we might be super similar in personality, we totally didn't look alike at all. You know how all dads want their kids to look like them? I guess it's some Neanderthal thing. But Arthur was different. Lizzy's family had these seriously strong genes. They all looked like copies of each other. Honestly, Lizzy and her cousins looked more like siblings than anything else. Arthur really resembled his mom, her dad, and actually most of her family. Anytime we would be babysitting Lizzy's sister's kids, our nephews, strangers never could fathom how 3 cousins weren't brothers, or how Lizzy wasn't their mom. We loved those occasions with the nephews, too, as it gave us a hint at what life could have been like with a larger family. Oh well, I guess a bigger family wasn't in the cards for us. We were pretty lucky, though, because we didn't really have money issues. We just loved hanging out together. Lizzy and I could never wrap our heads around couples who chose to spend their weekends apart. We'd watch our neighbors taking turns going out with friends while the other stayed home to watch the kids. We were all about spending time together. That's just how we rolled. I still love her as much as always and find her super attractive. She really doesn't look her age at all. We totally look more like we're in our 40s instead of our 50s. And it's even better because Lizzy's hair still has no gray in it. That's another thing from her family, since her dad was the same way. Their hair just kind of faded to a softer color instead of turning gray or white. The only downside to our marriage of late has been that the bedroom's kind of gone flat. We always had a pretty wild love life. Lizzy only had one boyfriend before me, and while she wasn't a virgin when we got together, she was pretty inexperienced. On the other hand, I'd been super busy at uni, but Lizzy was really open and surprised by what I brought to the table. Lately, since Lizzy went through menopause, she just stopped caring about love. Sex hurt her, and she kept bringing up my size. I really didn't want to hurt her, but after a while, any kind of nice physical connection became super rare. That really bummed me out and caused some issues between us. I guess it made me feel less like a man and not as attractive, you know? Anytime I tried to talk about this, Lizzy would completely unleash her legendary temper. It was hard on me because I still found her really hot, and honestly, my teenage libido was still running rampant too. So even at 54, I was still taking care of myself, if you know what I mean, every single day. I heard it's a way to keep a healthy prostate. So I really loved her a ton, and it was something I kind of learned to deal with, even though it hurt. But I wasn't about to cheat on her. For me, being faithful and trusting each other was super important. There was this older guy I worked with, Trevor. He was in his late 50s back then and had just gone through a divorce. He got very drunk at a staff party, and I was nominated to see him home. Home was now a rather bare little flat, and over a coffee, he told me his story. He was very much in love with his wife, but when he started to suffer from some erectile dysfunction, she decided to fulfill her needs elsewhere. She completely viewed it as something entirely different from their loving marriage, and was actually very surprised that Trevor had divorced her. Trevor's ex-wife was living alone now in another apartment, still reeling from the fact that her not being loyal to her husband had brought about her new life. What a bummer. That merely switching up his blood pressure meds later fixed all of Trevor's issues in that area. He missed the boat with his first marriage, but luckily he hit the jackpot with the second one, which made his retirement super happy. I could never cheat on Lizzy just to satisfy my own wants. My amazing Lizzy gave me a fantastic son, a cozy home, and a bunch of great memories. I owed it to her to handle this new chapter in our lives with love. So, Arthur and I definitely bonded over one cool thing, genealogy. We totally freaked out when we found out we were related to royalty. Can you believe it? My 30th great-grandfather was a king. Sure, I know lots of other people can say that too, but it's still pretty awesome. We just ended up digging up thousands of names on our family tree. But Lizzy, she couldn't care less. She said it was just some list of dead people. We tried to get her into it, but she really didn't care. A few years back, when I got my DNA kit, I offered to get her one too. But she threw one of her classic tantrums. She was totally against it, saying, they would know everything about me. I wasn't really sure who this big brother kind of they was or what they wanted to do with all that info about a pretty regular secondary school teacher. But you know what? I just let it go. It turned into my thing, and honestly, it felt good to have a little side interest for a change. A few years later, Arthur and I would still check out the Ancestry website once in a while, especially when an intriguing message showed up. We kinda lost some interest. When we figured out we weren't going to find any more fancy relatives, Arthur really enjoyed checking my DNA matches from all over the world, especially with all the new folks joining. I guess my Irish roots helped with those matches everywhere, since after the potato famine, so many people moved around. I thought it'd be a cool little gift for Arthur's 21st, so I got him an Ancestry DNA testing kit. Plus, it was on sale, which sweetened the deal. Anyway, I kind of dropped the ball and ordered it late because I was super busy leading up to his birthday. So, a few days after his birthday, we finally got it done, and I just threw it up online on my way to school. I didn't say anything to his mom because I knew how she felt about that stuff, you know? It was just one of those things shared with Arthur, really. I didn't want her to start up with that big brother nonsense again. Who is keeping an eye on Arthur now, too? I realize that all you people out there have realized long ago what is about to happen next. Looks obvious, doesn't it? And you would be right. All I can say is that it wasn't obvious to me. In fact, when I came home one night, a few days later, to find my life as I knew it had ended, I couldn't have been more shocked. Lizzy sat on the couch in the conservatory, really crying her eyes out. She was really heartbroken. The first thing that came to my mind was to freak out about who had kicked the bucket. I rushed over and hugged her tight. For a little while, she couldn't say anything, so I just held her, begging her to spill the beans on what went down. She finally managed to stammer that she'd been taking out the recycling and had spotted the cardboard box that the DNA testing kit came in. By this time, I was starting to feel a little queasy. This was such an overreaction, even for Lizzy. I was freaking out, and it felt like my stomach dropped to the ground. I could hardly wrap my head around what she said when she mentioned, "Arthur's yours, Albert. He is your son, but someone else got me pregnant. I did it for us, I swear." For a second, it seemed the whole world had gone quiet until I could literally no longer contain it. I ran toward the conservatory door and vomited up my lunch onto the steps down into the garden. Even Lizzy patted my back as I was being sick, soothing me as if she truly did care. Eventually, I cooled down enough to turn to her, and then I just yelled at her, "For us?" "Yeah, to make us a family," she said softly. Then the old Lizzy came back and yelled, "It's been forever, Albert." I totally knew I couldn't talk to her calmly. I was just way too mad, but I couldn't just walk away until I found out more. "Hey, Lizzy. You heard what the doctor said, right? He was clear that there's nothing wrong with either of us. No reason we can't have a baby. Sure, my swimmers might not be winning any gold medals, but they're totally average and can do the job. And there's nothing wrong with you either. I get that one of your ovaries wasn't working perfectly, but the other one was all good, which is why they didn't step in sooner. We just needed a bit of time." "I was running out of time, though, Albert." I wasn't all right. I kept thinking about what the doctor said about me. "So Clark Kent just wasn't cutting it for you, eh? You figured you needed Superman to get the job done with his superpowers? So where'd you even find that guy?" She gave me a shocked look. "Where?" I exclaimed. "It was Harry," she whispered. "I really don't recall walking out of the house. I get that I needed to pass through 2 rooms and the hallway to get outside, but it's a complete blur. What I remember is that if I didn't leave at just that time, then I probably would have done something afterwards that I'd wish I hadn't." I zoomed out of the driveway and finally came to a stop at a chill spot on the promenade. It was pretty much empty since it was out of season. "Harry, you know, my best bud, our best man, and basically the closest thing I have to a brother, she might as well have taken a knife to me. Harry and I have been buddies since we met when we were 18 at uni. We were both doing our art degrees, right? And so, I got into teaching, but he did art restoration. Every time we went to uni, people really believed that we were brothers rather than just roommates. We had the same build and coloring, although my eyes were a lighter green than his, and he was an inch shorter than me, too. We shared a room, so I also knew he was an inch or 2 shorter than me in other areas, too. Why would I even think about that? Classic guy stuff, but hey, I guess I found a little comfort knowing that we had been the best of mates. Inseparable at uni, really. He was my best man, and then I was his. Lizzy and Harry didn't even meet until a couple of weeks before the wedding, since he'd been living in France for a year, working in this gallery, getting his restoration skills on point. Lizzy just cracked up when she met him, said we must have come out of the same pod. He was super stoked when he came back 2 weeks later for the wedding, as he had met Luna just a few days prior. She became his wife. He fell really deep, kind of like I have for Lizzy. See, I told you we were so similar. He was hanging out at his parents' place on the Lancashire coast when he ran into Luna at their church. So his parents and Luna were into this happy, clappy, born-again church vibe. He was too, but you wouldn't catch him making a big deal about it in the student union bar. He did belong to the Christian Union, though, and I knew he was a virgin and planned on remaining that way until he got hitched. So, by the time he married Luna, I knew they were both virgins, and I could tell he was super nervous about it on the wedding morning. So I figured I'd give him a little pep talk. I mean, being anxious and a virgin probably doesn't lead to the best wedding night, right? So it wasn't until the wedding that her family literally thought I was his brother, instead of one of his 3 brothers that were present since I kind of looked the most like him. Being an only child, that connection with Harry meant a great deal to me. I cherished it. He literally was the closest thing I had to a brother and had been my buddy for 37 years. I loved him. So Luna and Harry had 4 kids. They had 3 girls, Rachel, Ruth, and Ran, before they finally had Arthur. Then, 6 months after Arthur was born, they had their boy, Jake. Being an only child myself, I totally loved being Uncle Albert, both to them and to Lizzy's 2 nephews, even though they were clear on the other side of the country. It was only a few hours away, so we usually went to see them since we only had 1 kid to haul around. Arthur really enjoyed being part of this big family, and we would hang out for special occasions every couple of months. Jake and Arthur were total best buddies, too. They both had an interest in transportation stuff, somewhat similar to mine. Harry was not so into it, so I took the boys to numerous car museums, bus fairs, and classic car rallies. That was our thing. Harry and I chatted once a week, then moved on to texting, and recently we have been sending each other the daily jokes or even memes that we found online. It was definitely a bit strange. I liked her a lot, and I could always make her laugh, but sometimes I thought she was a little uptight and stiff. Harry Potter and Halloween were taboo because of their faith. She did push Harry to become more involved in the church. I did think she was kind of tough on Harry in the kids' department. So on his 40th birthday, she totally flipped out on him before the party over something super small. After the party, we even came home a day earlier than planned. I wanted to stand up for him, you know, but I figured it was smarter to stay out of a husband and wife spat. She knew full well it was bothering me and was like, she could really vent in front of me since I got what he was all about. Everybody else is always so blinded and thinks he's perfect, but only you and I know what he's really like. Sitting alone in my car, I took in a very strange thought, that I didn't know my oldest friend at all. In fact, that I didn't have an old friend. The 2 people I had trusted most in the whole world had just betrayed me, and now I only had Arthur left. But what if he didn't want me either? I shot Arthur a text straight away. I had to see him before he ran into Lizzy. He needed to know that no matter what went down, he'd always be my son, and nothing could change that. I just had to hope that he felt the same about me. We'd actually managed to pick up a couple of bullet properties, and he was living in one of them. He was concerned when he first saw me approach his small apartment and immediately said, "Whoa, Dad, you look awful. Are you sick?" As he came forward to hug me, he pulled away. "Have you been sick? You stink. What's going on?" I shared everything that went down as best as I could and told him that I always wanted to be his dad. Before I totally lost it and started crying, he grabbed my face like I was the kid and he was the dad and said, "You are the best dad, my only father. I really don't want to know who that other dude was. I don't even know. He doesn't mean anything to me. He's not important. I don't ever want to run into him." He probably noticed me flinch at what he must have thought were comforting words. "I've already met him, right, Dad? I can see it in your face." I could only nod. "Who? Uncle Harry? The bastard? I'll kill him. You stay here. I'm going to talk to Mom." I cleaned myself up as much as I could. I had to be tough for him now. I just couldn't get rid of the feeling that only a few hours ago my life felt pretty close to perfect. Now, it all felt fake. Everything I built my life on had fallen apart, except my love for Arthur. So I showered and threw on a pair of Arthur's joggers and a t-shirt. They were a little tight. I didn't think he would care, though. He came back in less than an hour, totally furious. Oh, and he was carrying a small bag with some of my clothes in it. I told her, You're crashing here tonight, and she's got until tea time tomorrow to grab her things. She can move in here and we'll head home. Why should you have to sleep somewhere else just 'cause she wanted to try someone new? I'm not bailing on you, Dad, especially with how I'm feeling about her right now. I seriously doubt I'll be talking to her for a while. What else did she say, buddy? She told me she loves you, and that we'll get through this together as a family. Seriously, Dad, she's totally off her rocker. She's lost it. Listen, you know I can never forgive her, right? I mean, the fact that it was only a one-time thing as she felt desperate does not matter. She outright deceived me and lied to me every single day for more than 20 years. There's no way I can get past that. You're going to have to talk to her yourself, Dad. I mean, I really don't think anything's going on now, but from what she inadvertently said, it was most certainly more than a one-time thing. I've already given her the spare key, so you can just head home from school tomorrow like you usually do. I'll meet you there. You be good to go to work tomorrow, right? Yeah, probably not, but it's a training day before the half term, so gotta make do with it. They're super weird about you being sick or anything on the day before we get out for the holidays. They honestly think we're just pretending to score some cheap flights. Arthur threw me the bag and told me, "Hey, Dad, I think I found what you need in here. If you need anything else, just grab mine." Mom wasn't too keen on me taking stuff, but I didn't really give her a choice. Sorry I won't be around when you wake up, Dad. I've got to head out super early, but I'm just a phone call away. We'll get through this together, and I'll be with you all the way. I was really proud of this guy, so I looked at him and said in a quiet tone, I meant to be supporting you. That's what my job is. Dad, you've always had my back, and now it's time for me to have yours. Honestly, I'm really shocked, super angry. The only difference is, I haven't lost anything. I still have you, and Mum's around if I decide to deal with her. That's my PA, and I'm not sure what I'm going to do yet. I haven't really lost anything, but you have. I swear you'll never lose me. Seriously, remember what I said. How can you not just love this kid? Well, I did get some sleep. That is a bit surprising. I heard Arthur get up and leave about 4 a.m. I knew it would be early, but I didn't expect that early. School was a bit of a blur, to be honest. I wasn't really paying attention in the training course, and when somebody threw a question my way, well, I just had to bluff my way through. I got lucky, though, because during the tea break, my friend Graham checked in on me. I mentioned I thought I could be getting a migraine, and he said I didn't look so great. We finished everything by 4 p.m., and I simply walked around the nearest supermarket for a while. The thought of going home and seeing Lizzy was not appealing to me. When I drove into the driveway at 5:15 p.m., I saw her car in the same place it always occupied. Great. I nearly did a U-turn and suddenly felt my phony migraine coming on for sure. I guess I had to find the truth at some point. Might as well just deal with it now. Lizzy gave me a big smile. I didn't think you'd be here, I said softly. I understand that I told Arthur, but what I needed, is a word with you first. Yeah, well, you've totally shown that your promises aren't worth much. Just let me explain, and then I'll go to Arthur's. I promise. I realize that you've had a dreadful shock, but I need to explain. Look, seriously, I want the whole truth, Lizzy. Can't say it will make much difference, but I swear. If I find out you've skipped one detail, I'm done talking to you. Did you talk to Harry? Lizzy asked. Why would I want to talk to him? Hey, just wanted to let you know that I haven't said to him that wanted to speak with you first. Thanks. I bet it was rough for you putting me first for a change. Well, go ahead. The floor's all yours. I'll do my best not to interrupt you. Remember how badly I wanted a kid? All those tears every month? You were there for me, giving me hugs and telling me it'd be okay. But it just didn't cut it. I really wanted to be a mom. Harry seemed like the right guy, you know. He looked just like you, but honestly, that didn't even matter because Arthur ended up looking just like my side of the family anyway. I couldn't take that chance, you get what I mean? He looked so much like you, and he'd already had 3 girls. Luna told me all he had to do was glance at her, and boom, she was pregnant. So, how did you bring this up with my best friend? Hey, Harry, it looks like your oldest and closest buddy isn't really cutting it when it comes to getting me pregnant. You've got some experience in the baby-making business. Want to give it a shot? Hey, Albert, it wasn't like that at all. He totally got that you felt like you were letting me down. He knew how much you were struggling. He only jumped in to help us because of you. He really just wanted to lend a hand. To help himself to my wife, you mean? No, it wasn't like that at all. He was just going to be a donor. The first time we met in a hotel, it definitely wasn't for anything intimate. We were planning to use a turkey baster. That was the plan. He would head off to the bathroom, take a shower, and do his thing. He said being in the shower would help. I'd go to the door, he'd pass me his stuff, and he promised to stay out of the room until I was all decent. We would have seen less of each other's bodies than we have on the beach or at the pool a bunch of times before. It felt kind of weird and really sterile. I started to wonder if this was really how I wanted to bring a child into our lives. I lay on the bed. I just couldn't let this chance slip away and get pregnant. You must see that. Nah, I don't, Lizzy. I really don't. So I lifted my skirt and showed him. I'm really sorry, but I needed it to work. It was awful, like seriously the worst lovely experience of my life. He was smaller than you, of course. Totally useless. He just didn't seem to have a clue what to do. I don't even understand how he fathered 3 kids. He had nothing on you. After he came, he just sat on the end of the bed and cried. I thought it was guilt about what we'd done, guilt about you. I put my arm around him to say it was all good, and he kissed my cheek and said, "That was the best. I never knew that it could be like that, as good as that. Thank you." This big, tough guy, just like you, cried in my arms, and I was completely shocked. He actually thought that was good. He was thanking me for the cringiest sex ever. I don't think I have ever felt this sorry for someone in my entire life. He had just risked his marriage, his family, and your friendship to give us our family. I owed him, which was when I decided to thank him properly. I hadn't planned it. It just happened in the moment. It wasn't about you or me. It was something separate. I didn't love him or care about him like that. I felt at once grateful and super sorry for him. He had the family we were really craving, whereas he didn't have a love like ours. He honestly didn't have a clue. Now, we are on to a pity love. This was just love, you know, the good kind of love. There was no real love involved, I swear. Yes, I did things with him that he had never done with Luna. And honestly, it kicked in pretty well when he was happy, as you have felt with me so many times. But it wasn't about me at all. It was all about him. Seriously, I never did anything for him that I didn't do with you. How comforting. I always made sure of it. No, whenever we met up, I'd come home and make love to you. I just couldn't stand the idea of you missing out on anything. You always felt the same way on those days, but I didn't have the same right. I got the leftovers. He still had a loyal wife, and I was stuck with someone else's fling. I stopped because a horrifying thought just crossed my mind. Wait, you let me do this after him? Albert, it wasn't like that. I was giving myself back to you, back to my husband. By cheating on me with a lover? I finally made it to the sink this time, when I started to heave. While I was trying to pull myself together, I splashed some cold water onto my face, turning back to ask her another question. So, I saw Arthur chilling in the doorway with his phone. He shushed me by putting his finger to his lips and kind of slid back out of the doorway. I wasn't totally sure what he needed to catch, but I figured he'd handle it, right? Lizzy, I bet you had a good laugh at my expense, turning me into a cuckold, putting me down. Albert, no way. We never did that. We both cared about you a ton. Honestly, it was just easier if we didn't chat about you when we hung out. I let Harry know pretty early on if he was ever asked to compare love between him and you, he'd never measure up. So, he just dropped it. So, Arthur was right? This really went on, huh? It wasn't just a once-off thing? Lizzy glanced my way. Would it make a difference? I shook my head. Yeah, it went on, but not for too long. I got pregnant the first time. I felt it. I just knew. They say some women know, and I totally knew. When I came home to you that night and we made love, it felt different too. I really relaxed and just enjoyed being with my amazing husband. I wasn't stressing about making a baby. It's been ages since we made love without that being the main thing on our minds. Just loving you. Albert, you're the only guy I've ever loved. I've only ever made love with one guy, you. So, why care on? Was it some sort of training exercise on your part? Well, I had to. You know we wanted more kids, so I kept trying with him. When Arthur was about 8 months, we met up in Leeds. That was our usual spot. We never picked the same place twice. We were being super careful. Harry could slip away then, since things had died down after Jake was born. Leeds was perfect since it was kind of in the middle, about an hour and a half from either of our places, as long as the traffic was cool. It was all good. We could totally pull it off. We did too, until you had to mess with that damn family tree DNA stuff. Don't even start blaming me for being a cheater. I totally don't deserve any of this. I've done everything I can to keep you happy. Haven't I been a loving husband and provided well? You've been an amazing husband, seriously the best. You've been my whole world, but you just couldn't give me that one thing I really wanted, a kid. I was totally taken aback that she could really say that out loud. I completely understood that's what you wanted too, and I found a way to make it for you. I was shocked. I just stared at her and started to clap slowly, giving her an ovation. Oh, hey, nice job on your solution. It's kind of funny, though, that I don't have a house packed with kids, right? The big family we always dreamed of. We kept trying until you hit 45, huh? Then we figured out and came to terms that it just wasn't in the cards. How long did you keep trying with Harry? A little before we stopped trying. Few months, maybe. Wait, are you really saying you've been hooking up with my so-called best friend for 10 years? Man, I must be the biggest fool ever, totally an idiot. I've totally wasted my life. It was all just a big lie. I flopped down into a nearby chair, and Lizzy came over like she wanted to comfort me. Don't even think about coming near to me. You can't touch me. Albert, I love you. You haven't wasted anything. It was all real. How can you say it was a waste? All those wonderful memories. All that happiness. We've brought up a wonderful son together. Hey, Lizzy, we brought your amazing son together. I'm just super lucky that he still wants me to be his dad after everything. I realize that no matter what goes down, he is my son, whether we're blood or not. So, cold turkey, you went from seeing Harry and then gave up all this wonderful illicit love after a decade? It wasn't like that at all. The moment I figured out there was barely a shot at getting pregnant at that age, I put a stop to it. It wasn't about the love. It was never about the love. I had you for that. We always had an amazing love life, you know. Well, it's a vague memory nowadays, Lizzy, but I thought that it was. It obviously wasn't enough for you, Albert. What I did with him just didn't hold a candle to you. It really couldn't. It was just different, like it was in its own zone. I won't lie, it did get better after all. I trained him to do everything I liked, but even at its best, it still didn't measure up to you. It just couldn't, because he wasn't you. Suddenly I found myself older, out of a job, and my new gig was going to make it tough to get away with the hours I had. Honestly, I was kind of getting bored with it all anyway. I just accepted that we only had Arthur, and that's how it was supposed to be. All that driving for what? Hey, sorry to hear your cheating turned into such a hassle for you, Lizzy. My heart really goes out to you. So, how did Harry take it when things ended? This love that made him cry, even when it was rough for you because it was just so great for him? Come on, Albert, you're totally twisting this. It wasn't like that at all. Yeah, he loved the attention, obviously, and he's a guy, right? He was really doing it for us. Can't you see? So we could have more kids. He showed that when I said it had to end. Sure, he was bummed out, but he got it. Said it needed to stop. He was sad, but he went along with it. So, that was it, huh? Yeah, except once more. You know, his 50th. He was really down about everything. He just wanted one more time, but that was a whole different story. I seriously feel bad about that. It just felt wrong. I knew I was being unfaithful back then. I'm really sorry about it. Sorry about that one time, his birthday treat. Hey, what's another slice of that loaf, Lizzy? So, how often did you guys hang out during this whole decade of trying to have more kids? Every few months, say, 3 or 4 times a year. When I was super fertile, I took a moment to think about this. So, you've loved him like 40 times, maybe more, since you probably did it more than once sometimes, right? You're making it sound really cheap and trashy. Yeah, it was, Lizzy. It was super cheap. You kind of made it cheap, just like he made you feel cheap. Did it not hit you as weird that he gets you pregnant right away after coming to you twice that first time? Then he goes and loves you like 50 times when you're at your most fertile, and it just doesn't happen again? Honestly, I thought it was me, and I always held on to the hope that things would click with him or you. Thanks for thinking of me in this whole baby-making craziness. Yeah, I could have totally gotten you pregnant, or maybe it was you. But hey, Lizzy, I've got some pretty shocking news for you, too. It doesn't really stack up against you tearing my life apart, but I think you'll find it interesting. Unfortunately, Lizzy, you didn't really have a shot at getting pregnant again with Harry. Right before Jake popped out, he got a vasectomy. He only let me in on it. I actually took him there and picked him up. He begged me not to spill the beans. I felt kind of bad about keeping that from you, but I figured, since it didn't really affect you, I'd stick with my friend for once. Even Luna had no idea. He knew it wouldn't fly with her church beliefs. I mean, he was going to have 4 kids under 6. He just couldn't take the risk of having more kids. No, Lizzy screamed. So, he wasn't looking to have any more kids with us. He was just loving some willing, dumb girl. A cheap hooker for him, right? Just the price of a hotel room, I'm guessing. He actually paid up? I bet he found some killer deals on those budget rooms, too, I thought. I kept going, even though she flinched. Wow, a woman who totally disregarded her marriage vows. She clearly didn't think much of her husband, who was supposedly her everything, right? Lying and cheating on him for 21 years. You destroyed that love the moment you met him in that hotel room, even before anything happened. You totally betrayed me and shattered our trust. What you did after that and kept doing was just plain wrong. If that's what you call love, then go ahead and keep it. Lizzy stared at me, totally shocked, like she thought finally admitting the truth would wipe the slate clean and she'd be forgiven. I seriously couldn't wrap my head around the fact that this woman I loved and respected could be so callous, and didn't seem to get how much pain she had caused me and our family. You cheated on me because of what you wanted and needed, not because of me. You were just getting your ego stroked by someone who acted like you were some kind of love expert. Don't even say you kept it going to try to get pregnant. I think you enjoyed the secrecy, the lies, and making me look stupid. I'll never forgive you, Lizzy. Never. Just get out of my sight. I don't want to see you. Turning around, she finally managed to catch Arthur hanging out in the doorway. How much did you hear? Just enough to realize my mom's a selfish jerk. Arthur, please, she whimpered. Hey, before you head out, you should hear this. I went to see your boyfriend today. I left super early and honestly, I didn't think it would take this long. It just didn't sit right with me that he could mess up our family and be totally fine. I also wanted to tell him I'm done seeing him and make sure he got it through his head that I've only got one dad, and that's Albert. He looked a bit surprised when I showed up at breakfast. He was all worried it was bad news. Well, it was for him. Oh, and by the way, Mom, Aunt Luna really wants to chat with you. She seems pretty mad at you. That was before she even knew the whole deal, though. Thankfully, she'll get to hear most of your confession to Dad since I thought it'd be smart to record it while you were talking. I figured she'd want to listen in, too. Lizzy just looked so shocked while Arthur continued with his rant. Well, at least you came clean in the end. Anyway, so Harry decided he could just lie about it. Said I was created with a syringe and that he was just trying to help out. No love and mix at all. I said to Aunt Luna, I didn't think it was entirely true. Ran looked so upset. Turns out she'd had a huge crush on me for ages, and if I am honest, I felt the same way. Thank God we never did anything about it. You might as well add letting incest happen to your list of sins, Mom. He then looked at me. Hey, Dad, went ahead and smacked your ex-best friend pretty hard in the face. Just one hit, but I did it for you, man. I knew you couldn't risk getting an assault charge and messing up your job. I'm pretty sure I'm in the clear since he wouldn't dare report me, especially after Aunt Luna probably did way more damage when she need him. He looked back at his mother. Hey, you still here? At least you got a place to crash tonight. Harry's probably in an Airbnb by now since Luna kicked him out. I went ahead and gave her your flat address, so I kind of expect her to drop by. I knew I could never move on past the betrayal. She was always there for me. We were like a team, and to realize that actually she wasn't on my side, it really hurt. Obviously, the love part of what transpired was hard, and it was most definitely enough to end things. But what really got to me was the visualization of him holding her, running his fingers through her hair, telling her she was beautiful. You know, those sweet and close moments I thought were just ours. They had this special magic that only we understood. Those feelings kept me tossing and turning at night for the next few weeks as I started to deal with my new reality. I seriously felt like I'd never see myself as good enough again. She picked someone else to give her that special gift I was dying to give her, but she was too selfish to let me. Any time I truly had her, to handle everything with confidence, and after losing that trust, it has changed me in ways I never believed possible. You know, every time I thought about them together, it hit me how little we've actually hung out in the past few years. It looks like Lizzy has decided her love life is done and dusted. She made that call, like so many others, without even considering what I need or how I feel in all this. I know it sounds kind of crazy, but I couldn't stop thinking that if her love life and desire ran out one day, how sad it was that she spent so much of it on him. It just wasn't right. None of this is right. So you're wondering what happened with that old friend of mine, right? Okay. Well, I literally didn't do anything about it for like 6 weeks. So I talked with Luna and even hung out when she came to visit. But honestly, I knew if Harry came at me, I wouldn't be in control. I blocked him on everything. I figured Luna was the same as me, filing for divorce. And of course, I found out that none of his kids spoke to him. The girls were mad enough. But Jake, he was the worst. He's only spoken to his dad once, and that was only to say he wished I was his father. I bet that stung a bit good. All the kids reached out to me in some way to make sure I was okay. I was really worried about Ran because she was taking it the hardest. I think her feelings for Arthur were way stronger than she let on, and discovering they shared DNA totally shocked and freaked her out. Luna and I had a long talk. She had loved Harry, but he was hard work. She said it was like he was just another kid to take care of, and when nobody was watching, his selfishness did really surprise her. She felt that as a dad, he never had her back and only bothered to step up when other people were there, especially me and Lizzy. We both agreed they really pulled a fast one on us, and honestly, we had no clue anything was happening. But why would we? We were both loyal partners, though I was definitely happier than she was. We had faith in them, and that was what mattered most. They totally used our love, trust, and belief in them against us. So Luna and I will still be friends, and to be honest, she is way more chill without Harry by her side. At this point, it means a lot to me that I'll hopefully always be a part of her life and her kids' lives too. I ran into Harry one last time, right before Christmas. I headed over to hang out with Luna, Jake, and the girls. I really needed to get together with everyone and share my news. I wanted to catch Harry one last time to tell him how much I hated him for screwing up my life. I wasn't going to listen to his excuses. What's the point? What threw me off was the gloating. I figured he might at least attempt to say sorry, but nope. Maybe he figured there was no point, right? Maybe he held me responsible for everything he lost. I mean, he'd gotten away with it until I found out what really happened. So, I hooked up with your wife and gave her the one thing she really wanted, a kid. I can't change what happened. There's nothing I can say, so what's the point? I know you hate me, and honestly I get it, but I don't regret it. They say when you're on your deathbed, you regret not having more love. Well, the only real love I've ever had was with Lizzy, not that cold-hearted Luna. Nah, I didn't love Lizzy like you did. That was your gig. But I really loved the feeling. I knew I had to lie to her to keep things going. Even now, stuck in this dump, it was worth it. Even if it hurt you, my oldest friend, it was still worth it. Knowing that Arthur is mine makes it all worth it too. When he was through, I just showed him my phone. I pointed out the message that had popped up in my inbox from the ancestry company the day before. It said, Arthur was my son. Seriously, the best Christmas gift I have ever gotten. I reckon it was the best present for Arthur and Rand, too. Epilogue. 5 years later, my life is very different from what I ever thought it would be. So, Lizzy and I got divorced, obviously. I mean, I can hang out in the same room as her if it's necessary, but I'm not going to pick that option. We haven't really had a proper chat since she admitted everything, like, what's even the point? She showed up to school a few times to try and see me, but I put that quickly out of order with a little restraining order. She figured once I learned that Arthur was really mine, we had a shot of getting back together. Really, she knew me no better than I knew her. We spoke through the solicitors until the divorce was final. I took the house, and Lizzy got 2 of the Bolay flats. They were worth about the same as the house. Plus, she could make some extra cash from the rent on one of them. We were planning to sell the 3rd flat and split the money, but in the end, we decided through our solicitors to gift that flat to Arthur. I think we were both pretty psyched about it. Arthur settled into the flat, and for a time, as Jake was working on his MA nearby, he crashed with me like my stand-in son. I am not great being solo, so I really dug him being around. Arthur and I remain very close. He absolutely adores his mom, and she is still about in his life. He may love her, but he really doesn't like her all that much, you know? He certainly feels like she has cheated on him and the whole family, just like she cheated on me. She's all by herself. She says she hasn't gone out with anyone. I think it is tough when you're not really looking for love. Maybe she will end up finding someone to hang out with or just get a cat. Harry ended up in Spain. Ruth's been the only one to visit him. She said he's just engaging in a bit too much self-pity, hitting the bottle much too hard, still extremely bitter about how things all worked out for him. Sounded like all that love wasn't worth it after all. Good. So tonight I'm chilling at the table with my new wife, my son, and my daughter-in-law. I've got the cutest granddaughter ever bouncing on my lap while we eat. Luna's here too, and no, we didn't end up together. That was never going to happen. But she's seeing someone now, David. Though he's off working tonight, he's a really good guy and makes her super happy. So Luna's here not only because she is now my oldest friend, but also because we share Lucy, our granddaughter. So Ran and Arthur got married pretty quietly a couple of years back. When they realized they could actually be together, they jumped right in and shared how they really felt. They did a very quiet wedding, partly because that is what they wanted, but also because Ran does not get on with Harry and won't let Lizzy be part of the picture. I must say this makes me rather happy. Rand's okay with Lucy seeing her grandma when Arthur comes around, but she is never going to let her in their home or leave her alone with Lucy. You know what really does it for me? My wife, Jane, for sure. Just when I was feeling super down and had zero self-esteem, she came along and totally lifted me up. She was a supply teacher at my school, and we just hit it off right away. We fell for each other fast, and I quickly found out how awesome it is to be with someone who wants you just as much as you want them. So we got married after 18 months, and we are super happy. Retirement has been great for us. Jane was widowed with no kids of her own, so now she is totally smitten with little Lucy. She never expected to feel the love of a child or be called Nana. Isn't it wonderful for her to share in Lucy's life this way? Arthur says that Lizzy's pretty upset because Jane gets to enjoy her retirement with her husband, her son, and her grandkid. As Arthur mentioned himself, whose fault is that, Mom? Definitely not Jane's, definitely not Dad's, and definitely not mine. You can't argue with that.